Welcome to Heartland, Darkland. I'm Shannon.
And I'm Cassie. Hey, Dark
Hey,
Hearts.
Dark Hearts.
What was that?
Say it, and you already were like almost done with it. So the Dark Hearts, I just chimed in when I could. Oh my gosh, that's too funny. Okay, words.
I love
and
it.
Stuff. I don't know. It's fine.
You know.
It's fine. So here we are, back again.
It
Cassie
has-
looks like Joy from Inside Out today, just in case anyone, the people that are listening and not watching, I just wanted everyone to know that. And it's fun.
I was a couple Halloweens ago. I was a punk version of Joy for Halloween.
I remember that. I do remember that. That's fun. That's why it's like, it's perfect. And it's kind of gloomy today, so we'll just go with the Joy.
Yeah. It has been the longest week already, and it's only Tuesday.
Yeah, that's because your kids are home. That's why
I know,
that'll do it.
Even work yesterday, I walked in and they were like, yeah, hi, iPads are down. I was like, cool.
Just a Monday, huh?
Yeah, poor front desk. It was just two of them. It was one of our assistant managers and another front desk. And then you know how some of the therapists don't think that, I don't know, front desk are real people or something. So
yep,
I had to send out a message and be like, hey, let's remember front desk are here to support us. And it's been a day, so let's give them some kindness, please.
Mondays are rough. Today feels like it should be a Thursday. Like, I don't know why. I think it's because I've packed in a lot of work, like trying to be done for the end of the week, and that's why it feels that way. But
yeah, last week was
we're almost
super
there.
long too, because Wednesday felt like a Monday, and my daughter went and got her permanent hearing aid now. And by permanent, I just mean it's not like attached or anything, but
right, yeah.
Her own personal one now, because Boys Town just lent us one, but we were there from 11 a.m. until almost 5 p.m. Because they called me the day before to see if she'd be willing to do some research.
Oh, yeah.
For them.
You told me that, I think. Yeah, that's sweet.
So, I mean, they were super sweet. She had fun with it and everything, but it was really cool because they've been doing this study since like 2020.
Wow.
And they needed 75 kids who used hearing aids and stuff, and she was the 75th.
Oh, that's super cool. Look at that.
Yeah, so they were very kind and appreciative of like we're so sorry, we wouldn't normally call last minute like this, but so like we went there for that, and then we had lunch, and then she saw her audiologist to get her hearing aid and all that stuff, and then we saw the ENT specialist just to kind of go over things and pretty much come to the realization that like we won't probably ever know what caused it, because we could do genetic testing, but it's expensive and like very unlikely to tell us anything.
Right.
And we could do an MRI or a CT scan, but that's only like a 20 to 30% chance it would tell us anything.
Yeah. So and why bother? Like, as long as she's good now and you have what she needs.
Yep. And, she's now just we're on that road of where she'll be monitored and stuff like that. And we'll do testing, keep an eye on all of that. But I mean, she loves her hearing aid, which is so nice, because that was one thing, good. And I noticed the other morning she came in to cuddle with me. I think it was like Saturday morning or Sunday morning or something. No, it would have been Sunday morning. And I have now noticed, because she didn't have her hearing aid in, I haven't had to tell her to use her inside voice in forever, because she used to talk so loud because she couldn't hear herself because it was muffled, right?
Yeah.
And so then she was laying in bed with me without her hearing aid, and she started talking. I was like, Finn,
calm down, girl.
I said her daughter. Her name. I tried to just say my daughter. Might try to bloopy it out, but we'll see.
Yep.
But yeah, so I was like, girl, inside voice, please.
Gosh, maybe that's what my kid needs. She is loud all the time. I'm like, take it down a notch. And now I understand why my parents always were like, shut up. I mean, they weren't, but they were like, yeah, you don't need to be that loud. I get it now. One of those parent things, you finally get it when you're a parent.
Right. But yeah, I guess that's just a little bit of rambling. I am more somebody talking to Shannon, and you guys get to hear it.
No, I'm glad I got the update. Yeah, I know. I kind of forgot. That was last week. I feel like when you told me you were going to do that, that was like a month ago. So
it feels that way.
Yeah,
last week was excessively long. This week is already, and
it's just and then we're in December and New Year. Like, okay, well. Yeah, we're there. I have my Christmas stuff up, as you can see. Not my choice, but it's up. It is up. We are good. We're ready to go. I don't have to do it again for a while. Like, I don't have to do anything with it. But it's a project, It's like a whole day thing. So
it is. We'll probably go get our tree this weekend after Turkey Day, because
That's usually when we do it, but
yeah, I don't do anything prior to that, but we do a real tree, so.
Oh yeah, that's more work too. So yeah. I know we usually do it after Thanksgiving, but I was like, it's so late this year that I was like, I guess if we're gonna put it up, we could do it. I'll do it like 1 week before, but that's it. That is my limit. My daughter has a tree up in her room that she's had up since like before Halloween. So I was like, you do your thing in there.
That's too soon.
Yeah. She's like, I mean, Christmas baby born on the 23rd. So I feel like she's in her blood. Like that kid loves Christmas. So whatever. But on that note,
yes, anyways.
Yeah, we'll talk about more depressing things now instead of, whatever. I mean, just the huge.
Right.
So we're actually going to Illinois this week.
Okay.
And we'll put in the show notes I watched a 2020 episode on this, and it actually just came out like a year ago. So it's not even that old of an episode. And so I was like, and I saw that when I looked up this case and then I saw there was that, I'm like, perfect. So anyway, but this case is from 2012. So it's fairly more recent than some of the ones we've done. Okay, so we'll just kind of go and start kind of not backwards, but kind of. Okay. So on October 3rd of 2012, a missing person call comes in from a Todd Smith. He says that his wife, who's 30, Katrina Smith, she had been house sitting for a friend who was out of town and he hadn't been able to get a hold of her. So he was obviously concerned because her work had even called him and said that she hadn't shown up and they wanted to make sure everything was okay. Of course, this was not something she would do. This is always how we know that this is not how it's going to go. But,
right.
So, he's a little panicked. So he calls Katrina's sister, Miranda. So Miranda's 8 years younger than Katrina. He asks her if she's talked to Katrina and she hadn't. So then naturally she's panicked now because she wasn't at work and she was like a very punctual employee, like just really good employee, always there. So, it's like a game of telephone, and she calls her mom, lets her know, and everyone's kind of panicked at this point. I know I said we're in Illinois, so a little bit more kind of specific about the town. This is actually called Manchesney Park, I believe.
Okay.
So it's like a suburb of Rockford, which is like an hour from Chicago, I believe. So, I mean, not far. It's like a big, small town type place.
Oh, yeah. One of those places.
Yeah. It's a big, like, blue-collar community. Lots of industrial plants there.
Yeah.
And pretty much anyone from the outside, I mean, I don't know if you maybe, but, like, when they think of the Rockford area, they think of the Rockford Peaches, which, of course, was the first, like, baseball, softball team for women in the 40s or whatever. And then the movie A League of Their Own is actually based on that. So
I love A League of Their Own. The first one, I never watched the remake, but
yeah, I didn't either because don't mess with something good. They just tried to make it like real woke, and I was like, no, let's just stick with the original. We don't always have to redo everything. Thanks.
I didn't see. I feel like they've run out of ideas, but I will say, like the one thing, when you look at like true crime stuff, and everyone's like, oh, she lit up a room, and I'm like, that's not me. I will say the one thing, if I do not show up for work and I have not called or texted someone, something's wrong because I show up an hour before my first appointment, typically.
Yeah. I mean, that's true, too, because some people are just not as responsible. Like, if it was someone who, like, was known for, sleeping through their alarm or something, you probably wouldn't think about it. So, like, I guess that is a good thing to note. Yeah, you won't light up a room, but you'll be at work.
But I will be at work. So, hopefully, if I ever don't, well, I mean, someone else should notice prior to me not showing up to work. Considering I have children, that and I'm the one responsible for getting to school and on the bus. But if for some reason that's not a thing, if I don't show up to work and there has been no phone call, I would hope work is like, this is real weird.
Yeah, right. And that is exactly where I was like, okay, it makes sense. Like, I feel like this is always how the story starts. They didn't show up to this, and then, which it is in this case too. And so it's, I guess, note that Katrina's a responsible person, and they're married. She doesn't have any kids of her own, which we'll talk about that a little bit too. So like, I guess the kid excuse couldn't be for her either. Right. So she wasn't there. That's alarming. So that's a little bit about the area that she's from. However, it was interesting because this area, I think it's Rockford specifically, is one of the very, like, in the top 3 violent cities with a population of under 200,000 people. So it's very high crime area, which just thought that was a fun fact there to throw in because that's who would have thought, but it's near Chicago. Like,
I was gonna say it's near Chicago, and Chicago is always like up there. Like, aren't they usually have the most like violence and stuff, even above New York City?
I think so. Chicago's no joke, man. Like, no. So I mean, that's that. So once her missing, she's missing. The police want to talk to the person who filed the report, which obviously is her husband. So Todd Smith. 9 years earlier, Todd had been working as a DJ, which is funny when you see what he looks like. You're like, okay, what kind of music did you play, man? Like just a kind of a scrawny little dude, but whatever. Yeah. So he was working as a DJ and he had met Katrina, who was out with her friends that night. They hit it off, got married. They had a really beautiful wedding. There's videos of it and stuff. And I don't know where they're at, but it's outdoors somewhere and it was really beautiful. So the thing that was kind of weird though, Todd was 15 years older than her, which, okay, when you're older, it doesn't matter as much.
Okay, but also how old was he when he was DJing?
Fair. That's also a good, it's old man River over here DJing.
Right. And how old was she? Because let's say if they were out at a club and she's 21, right?
Yep,
so
she would have been 21. So it was 9. Yeah. That's kind of weird. I guess I didn't think about that at the time when I was typing up my notes. But yeah, so 15 years older. So at this point, if she's 30, he's 45. So he had been married once before and he had 3 daughters with his previous wife. And the 3 daughters, by the time that she went missing, they were kind of teenage, middle school-ish age.
Could take care of themselves more so.
But they adored her, which is nice to hear because I don't feel like you hear that a lot with stepmoms and stuff,
Especially if the new stepmom is that much younger than
that would be weird. And maybe that's why they liked her. Maybe she could relate to them more, but maybe. They said that they really respected her and that she was a lot of fun and she brought a lot of light to everything they did. And they said that one thing about her that they loved was she would remember little details about their lives and what they were doing and schedules and stuff. And that made them always feel very special. She would go to all their events and cheered them on and she really loved them a lot. And I think that's cool because from her standpoint too, that would be hard to marry into 3 almost grown girls too, nonetheless. Girls can be crazy. We all know that.
Yeah. And they're in the thick of it with hormones and teenage years.
I
teenagers
can't
in general, but
I have a middle schooler right now and I'm every day of my life, I'm it's like a Sour Patch Kid. Are we, sweet or are we sour today? Hard to say. This is the hardest level of parenting I have reached, friends.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. So props to her. I understand that. Katrina and Todd, they worked together. I don't know the details about exactly what they were doing together, but I think they worked from home because they said how they were together all the time, but they had a really happy marriage and everyone was oh, that's kind of cool. But I think that I wouldn't want to work with my spouse. I think that's too much togetherness sometimes,
Yeah. But also then how did she not show up for work if they show up together?
I guess I should have said they used to work together. Okay. Sorry. Okay. I should have left. Yeah. I forgot because I was getting to the part where eventually she ends up finding a different job. I don't know why. They never really said, and she never really told anybody why. So I don't know if there was any tension or what there, but she was working at a place called Cameron Industries. Not sure what they do there, but she was in the HR department, very dedicated, always showed up, and she really seemed to love her job. But interestingly enough, they found out, I don't know, after she was missing and looking into it, she actually got a job interview scheduled for a couple days after she had gone missing. So she was obviously looking at leaving, but they don't know because she was pretty to herself. She kept a lot of stuff going on just close to her. So I don't know what the reason was behind that. So, but she had kind of been hinting that something was going on. She had told her mom that she had this interview. She didn't tell her why, but she just said, after the interview, I'm going to come over and I just want to talk to you about something. And, of course, her mom's what, is everything okay? Because I hate the vague things.
I hate that. Don't vague me.
Yeah,
don't
tell me now or don't tell me anything until you come over. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's immediately my anxiety's and then I won't sleep. I won't eat. What did I do wrong? People pleaser. So, so they didn't know what she wanted to talk about, but she just said that she needed to. So, and then she had also kind of hinted at things to her siblings. She had a brother. I'm not sure how old he was, but the sister, like I said, she was 8 years younger, but they were really close. She said that Katrina had asked them to dog sit at different times because she said that they needed to go out of town for a much needed vacation. So I don't know if it was like, I don't know, just stress with the kids.
Like maybe stress from the kids. We're having some marital problems. And we kind of think that maybe maybe we don't work together. So we have that a little bit of a part-time. Right. Maybe these vacations are hoping that if we are with each other in a non-stressful situation, we can kind of reconnect and get back to it. And it is
good.
Yeah.
I think that is good. Like they always say, it's important to take like time with your spouse. So I mean, it doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, but they just thought it was kind of weird because she just kind of was acting different about things. So that's kind of where they were at by the time that she went missing. So the last time that Todd had actually heard from her was the day before he reported her missing because she was house sitting. So like it wasn't probably odd if she didn't come home or whatever.
Right.
She was running errands the night before. And then after that, that's the last he knew. So they don't have a lot to really start with when they're working on this case. They kind of keep a lot of the details very close to them, which we know always how that goes. But I think fairly early on, they actually found her car off this side road that I don't think got a lot of traffic. It was like pulled off down kind of by like an embankment type area where it looked out of place. Like nobody would just pull over there. And the way it was facing, I don't know, like I think if you pull off a road, you're probably, parallel with the road, you would think, but it was facing like the opposite way. I don't know what that direction would be, but it was just kind of weird.
Yeah.
The pictures I saw, I was like, that's odd. So they don't tell the public that stuff immediately, but they take the car in, of course, and they look through it. They didn't really find anything in there that was useful. They did find like I don't know if it was like an anniversary or Valentine's type card, but it was like a romantic type card, we'll just say, from Todd. And this was this long note written inside about how much he loves her and cherishes her and all the weird,
This is giving that vibe of the dentist who killed his wife.
Oh, yeah. I forgot the Valentine's Day one. Yes, I remember that one. So that was kind of odd, but like the police don't necessarily think, I mean, it could have just been in there. He could have just given it to her. They don't have any dates. So I guess it's just relevant because it's there.
Right.
When they talk to him, he stresses they had no marital issues. They had a very normal relationship. They would have their normal little arguments like every couple does, but nothing big. He said overall, it was just a really happy marriage. He said that actually the night before she had went missing, they had been talking about possibly adopting a child. So he said there was like no way that they would have been, she would have been leaving him or something along those lines. So,
I mean,
yeah, it could go either way. You never know. You're like, we know how this goes. You want to trust people, but at the same time, that people lie. So
I don't know. It's the husband,
I know,
so
like the stickers.
I already don't trust.
Did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't trust Todd.
Yeah, I just don't like Todd anyway. Like, he just looks like, I don't know. The fact that he was like a DJ, I'm like, what's the deal? Is this like little man syndrome here? Like, you're
like,
old
we don't want to grow
cool
up.
and,
like, we didn't ever get what we wanted. And like, so we,
badass. Because I know, well, I'll talk about it later more, but just a little bit of like his first wife, they married when they were like 20 years old. So they were young. So like, I knew it's like, okay, what's going on here? Midlife crisis type thing.
Right.
But yeah, so back to her missing. They're handing out posters and flyers all over town. Strangers were helping. They set up like a station near the park area, kind of where her car was found. I don't know if they knew at that point then that was released, that information was released.
Yeah.
There's really no relevance to the fact of me telling you that because they don't talk about that later on, I guess, other than the fact that they were just like very careful with the investigation, I guess, just to note that.
Well, that's the first.
Yeah.
For our cases, I feel like
exactly. That's what I feel like. I'm like, okay, they were doing a good job. And I actually really liked the investigator that was on this 2020. He seemed like one of the better ones I've seen talking where it sounds like he really was dedicated and took this case very seriously. So they know the time's crucial because, we know how these cases always go.
Right.
So everyone's out and helping. Todd kind of becomes the face of the search, of course. Everyone feels for him. He was hurting and everyone's comforting him. He's heartbroken. He's like he's playing the part, whether he's innocent or not. I mean,
I feel like
everyone's
but
feeling, I mean, like, yeah, I'm like, I don't want to say too much until like later because there's a lot more that goes into this. So I'm like, I don't want to, spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But either way, I just don't like him. So like I said, so 10 days after she's missing, they have like a candlelight vigil, and at this, Todd and her family, her mom, her sister, brother, they're all playing, with whoever has her, let her go. We want her home. Todd's daughter said that he originally didn't want to be on TV. He thought people would just assume that he wanted the attention. But eventually they told him like it would probably help if you are on there. And as soon as he was on the news, like they did start getting more calls. I don't know. Maybe people just put a face with it and like, this is a real person missing someone. I don't know. I have to just note too, I love his daughter. They talked to one on this documentary and she's so well spoken and just like, I just really liked her. And everything she said really was like made sense. And she didn't seem wishy-washy. And so, I mean, anything she said, I'm like, okay, I kind of take that like seriously. So yeah, so as they're looking into things, they actually find out that Katrina had recently filed a police report saying that somebody in her neighborhood was stalking her. Yeah, I don't know the time frame on that, but they said that this guy, it was a young guy, like a college student, he had been in the same like church group with her, and he had been looking through her bedroom window.
Oh.
He lived nearby, and he was just home for college at the time. And so that was creepy and weird. So she at least did the right thing and filed the report. And the detectives are like, obviously want to talk to this guy, which he had already gone back to college. So they send someone to go talk to him there. And then in the meantime, other investigators are searching this area where her car was found. So they searched a 20-mile radius, which that's a huge, And it's all kind of wooded and a lot of brush and shrubbery. And so as they're looking, they find her purse in just kind of some brush area. And they also, farther from there, not in the same spot, but they found like paper towels, and they looked like they had blood on them. So they thought these were obviously used to clean something, which they did note that when they looked in her car, it looked like it had been cleaned out on the inside.
Yeah.
And even they found like some DNA in there, but nothing that was conclusive, because obviously like her husband's DNA would be in there, hers.
Right.
But they were able to determine that the DNA on the paper towels was from her. So they knew that something was up. And I mean, anytime you find blood, like, and it was a lot of blood. When they showed like the evidence picture, I was like, I feel like I would be more concerned as an investigator finding that, but they were just like, just to clean up what, sir? Yeah. So then another, like, I don't know how much further, because like I said, it was a 20-mile area they searched. They found her phone. They said it looked like someone had just like dumped it in a bush, like was walking and just stuck their hand out and dropped it in there, because it was kind of down like between things. And back in 2012, I mean, iPhones were a thing, but it looked like the picture they showed of her phone looked like an older like flip phone. So when you fold it, it's pretty little down there, and so it would blend in. So they found that too. And then they kind of spaced it around, like, and they said it looked like someone, like a breadcrumb trail, like someone was walking and just disposing of things as they were going.
And then it was going to like lead to her body, right?
Well, no, actually. Yeah, you'll see. Sorry. Yeah. So that's interesting. So they're like, okay, so at least it kind of gave them like a pathway to work with. So, so then back to the guy, the investigator that went to the college where this stalker attended school. He did confirm all the things about the stalking. He admitted to that. However, police were able to confirm his alibi that he was at school when she would have gone missing. And he had been at school for a while now, it looked like. And so, they could verify that with all the like logins and stuff at school. So he was excluded pretty quick from this.
I assume school was far enough away for them to rule out him going and back and forth.
They didn't even say, they just said like when they found out about this, they said, an investigator hopped in the car and took off. Then they went to a whole nother thing. So I'm like, it must have been a decent amount of driving time.
Yeah.
But so they were able to say it wasn't him, which kind of sucked just because you're like, well, that would have been an easy way to find her. But they found her phone. So now they're able to look through her phone, and they get a lot of info off that phone that is actually very, very helpful. So There was a lot of messages back and forth between her and a male coworker, and based on these messages back and forth, they were able to determine that she was definitely having an affair with someone that she worked with at Cameron Industries. So they look into this guy and his past, and they see some things that alarms them. So his name is Guy Gabriel, and he also worked in HR, and he was a supervisor in another department there at Cameron Industries, which I was like, okay, well, maybe that's why she was looking for another job.
That's
because,
what I was thinking too, because it's frowned. I mean, especially if you're in HR, I mean, if you're both in HR, I suppose maybe, but like, also you're having an affair. Like if you were single and you guys were to have a relationship, I don't know. So and that might be.
He also was married too.
Okay.
I found that out later. Yeah, they just casually mentioned something about his wife. I was like, oh, that's probably important to note that they were both affairs. I mean, okay. So it was definitely hidden from everyone. Like anyone close to her had no idea because, like I said, she was just pretty quiet and to herself. And from the outside, like Katrina and Todd looked like they had this wonderful, happy marriage. So nobody would have even suspected that one of them was having an affair. So when they look at Guy's history, it looked like in 1989, he had been charged with aggravated battery from a bar fight that caused great bodily harm. So I'm like, okay, he could be violent, I guess is what that points out. Or but that was also we don't know. So he could have been like in college and just drunk and like fighting. Yeah. But he ended up getting acquitted of that. So, okay. They also said he had temporarily lived in a tent somewhere in the woods, and that struck them as very odd, which I was like, okay, if these are the red flags you're referring to, like, I can think of a lot of worse. Like, everybody does stupid shit. Like, if that's the case, then everybody's going to have red flags about something they did in their past. But, okay. Yeah. They, look into their relationship, and it was interesting because about 2 weeks before Katrina went missing, a bunch of employees at this Cameron Industries were outside on a break, just hanging out. When they're out there, this black Volkswagen comes tearing into the parking lot. They don't know whose it is. They don't recognize it as being an employee or anything. This person kind of stops in the middle of the parking lot and then just throws a bunch of like flyers, paper, whatever, through the sunroof. Like they have it on film. If I can find like a picture of it, because you can see it on their surveillance. Just throws all of these freaking flyers out of the car and then just takes off speeding. So they couldn't tell who was driving this car. The person driving had like a black mask on, and it was just weird, like black gloves, all the things. The car had no plates on it. So they're like, what the hell? But naturally, you're going to look at what the papers are, right?
Like, so, what are the flyers then that require this level of anonymity?
Yeah. So the flyers at the top, they were typed. The top said Guy, and then, I don't know, it said something in between. It was blurred out. They said it was something vulgar. And then underneath, it said Cat. So Katrina, however, it was spelled C-A-T. So they're like, someone's purposely trying to like, kind of hide her identity, but like not. And then underneath it, it was this big, long typed out thing about intimate details about the affair between Guy and Katrina. So whoever did this obviously wanted everybody at their job to know that they were having an affair, because nobody knew.
Like a pissed off spouse.
I mean, there's that, so someone's trying to mess shit up, like clearly. Katrina's freaked out, obviously. She also felt like someone was like tracking her. She just said she felt like someone was always watching her, which you would probably be paranoid anyway after having that situation with the other guy.
Well, but also if you're having an affair, you're probably already slightly, because it's like when they say that cheaters tend to accuse their partners of cheating then because they get paranoid that they're doing it too. So I feel like when you have to stick around like that, and depending on how long it's been going on, you probably start to get paranoid, but then you do add that into it, which if they have intimate details, you have to know this person has figured out, like they have been tracking you in some way.
Correct. They've either followed you or they've looked at your phone or all the things. So on that note, like she thinks someone is tracking her phone. So she goes into US Cellular, and of course, but she wants them to look at her phone. She's like, I think my phone's been compromised, which sounds like a spy situation, hardcore. So, sorry, my dog was barking, guys. I had to help you out there. Okay, so Yeah, but the worker that was there said they knew her because she'd been in several times before, just because, whatever phone things. I don't know. Like, I don't know how you're that familiar with your cell phone, like, provider.
I don't know. US Cellular, like, are they that great of a provider? And, like, their phones? So, like,
maybe. I don't know.
Hard to say.
Hard to say is right. So the lady, though, that, they talked to, she's like, yeah, she just seemed very, like, scared, kind of fidgety. She just wanted me to, like, do something, and I couldn't really tell if anything had been put on her phone, but they think that maybe she was just like really scared and was kind of worried about what was going to happen. So she even called her dad, which they never talk about her dad, so I don't know the situation there, but she had called him, or stepdad, I don't know, and asked like what the process was to get a firearm, because she was so freaked out. So no talk that she actually did that, but that's kind of where she was. So when the police interviewed Guy, he was super cooperative. Like, he told them everything they wanted to know. He let them search all the things, his house, his car, everything, his phone. He was like, you can even take DNA. Like, I absolutely want to help, and I didn't do anything. And so they check his alibi, and it's airtight. Like, they have surveillance of him at work for all these times when she would have been missing. And so they're frustrated because, once again, they're like, okay, we kind of hope this was the guy so we could figure some shit out. But he was actually really helpful to them, because he told them how him and Katrina had talked about her divorcing Todd and just getting out of there. And he said that she had already talked to Todd about this, and she actually had moved out. I don't know where she was staying at the time, but she wasn't even living in their house.
Oh.
And nobody knew that because she wasn't telling her family. So then I'm like, well, maybe that's part of what she wanted to talk to her family about. Guy showed them even text messages between them that he still had on his phone, where she was telling Guy, like, I talked to him and he doesn't care. I told him I have nothing left to give. I don't want to reconcile. And then she said, I have an appointment with an attorney next week to talk about divorce. And the cops did they confirmed she did have an appointment with a divorce attorney. So that was interesting. So, they're like, okay, well, what the hell? Like, Todd said everything was fine, which I'm like, just because somebody says that never means that that's actually true.
And, like, how come why were we not interviewing the husband right off the bat as the aren't we supposed to always?
Cool. We know that he says everything's fine, but even if it wasn't fine, is he gonna say that? No. It gave like Chris Watts vibes to me, like when he was like crying and stuff. Like, I don't know. So now they're like, okay, well, they had no idea that all that was going on. So then it said that they looked at that card kind of in a different way that was in her car. And they were like, it almost sounded more like a plea or like a threat. And they're like, it had said something about like, if you ever leave me, I'll just die. I don't know what I would ever do without you. But like in a weird way.
Yeah.
So they were like, did he leave it on purpose, or did he just write and she happened to have it? Like, we don't know.
Right. Like, it almost also feels like I'm going to leave this here so they see how much I loved her and how great things were.
Yes. Like it was planted almost. Yeah. And so then they're like, well, they're looking all over to figure out where this black Volkswagen came from too, with that whole situation. So because it didn't have plates, they thought, well, maybe it's like from a dealership, So, ding, ding, they find a dealership in town, like one of the only ones that had this specific black Volkswagen. And they talk to the owner there, and then they ask him if they know this, Todd Smith. He's like, yeah, actually, he was in here not too long back. He test drove a car that he was interested in buying. I think it was a Volkswagen. So they're able to confirm, well, not necessarily that it was him, but plus they, now, and then too, they take copies of like your driver's license when you test drive a car. And so he had that on file. So they knew he test drove that. So it's, a lot of like circumstantial, but like, what are the chances, right?
Right.
And they said he was dressed in dark clothes and everything, which the person driving the car was too. So when they talk to Todd about all that, he like denies all of that, which they're like, okay, even if he did that, that doesn't really mean anything other than he's just a jealous husband. You could, slander and all that shit, but like
motive.
She's missing. And yeah, exactly. So, when her family like hears all of this, they're shocked because they literally thought they were in this great marriage, which is interesting. Like she must have put on a pretty good show in the sense of like, I feel like that would be hard to hide if you were that unhappy, but
yeah,
I don't know. They didn't even know that she had moved out. They didn't know they were having problems. They said she just kept everything really close to her heart. So another odd thing about Todd was that like Well, her family was just kind of under the assumption that he was running a super successful business. So, he said he had all this money and things were going really well, but Katrina was clearly the breadwinner. And they found out that he was actually being investigated at this time by the FBI for a wire fraud crime. Like taking that a different road. So, which I don't know how they wouldn't have seen that right away. And maybe they did. It's just like for timeline purposes, you can't say everything at the same time. I don't know. So take that with however you want.
Yeah.
So after they look into it and stuff, they find out that Todd, he had a business partner too, and they were running like a Ponzi scheme. I mean, hardcore. People would invest money with him. He would get commission off of it, but then the documents that he was actually presenting to these investors were fake. It claimed they'd get all their money back. And this is messed up. Like one of the couples, they were over 80 years old. They lost over $500,000, like their life savings to him.
Oh my God.
Like that alone pissed me off because I hate when people prey on like the elderly too.
So when she wanted to leave him, if she's the breadwinner, he's fucked.
He's like, shit. And especially if they're investigating. And then I'm like, well, that's another reason maybe why she was going to get a new job because they weren't making any money and someone had to do something.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. That kind of came out of nowhere. I was like, oh, I didn't see that coming. So now they have a lot of stuff on him. He's not clearly who anyone thought he was. So as they continue looking into him, they find even more information. And it just keeps getting crazier. So as they're doing that, we'll kind of jump to another day and go back to this so it's kind of in order here. So on November 9th of 2012, an off-duty fireman was out fishing near Byron, Illinois. I don't know the name of the lake. It's about 20 miles south of where her car was found. Interesting. Well, I'll backtrack to that. But so he sees something in this lake that didn't sit right with him. He's like, what is that? He gets closer. He said about 20 yards away from his boat. He saw a bunch of logs and all the things, sticking out of the water. But he also recognized that there was a body in there. He said he could tell because he could see like a torso and some clothing. Thankfully, he was trained well enough to know not to get any closer. So he was like, clearly this is a body. So he calls the police. And waits for them to come out. But it was interesting because I saw later on where it said he had actually been out fishing on Halloween. So this would have been like 13 days prior. And it was dark though at night and he was fishing and he thought he saw something in that area where she was found. But because it was so dark, he couldn't see. He said he turned a flashlight on and he looked and he couldn't see and it was late. So he left. So then when he went out fishing again this day, he thought, well, I'm going to go check what that was. I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah.
So, holy shit. So like they could have found her way sooner. Not that that would have made a difference if she was already gone. But I just thought that was crazy. So they come out, they confirm it is Katrina Smith. The autopsy revealed that she had died by blunt force trauma to the head. They said that she had been hit several times very hard with a very heavy object. So that just seems like an angry, pissed off person, like very personal. So like I said, how they were finding out things about Todd. Interestingly enough, Todd Smith was not always Todd Smith. So he had actually changed his name. He used to be Todd Reprager, I don't know, who cares? But he had grown up also there in Manchesney Park, and he had lived with his mom, stepbrother, and 3 half-siblings. And growing up, he was really quiet. He was kind of involved in school things. I mean, he was in band and football. He was like just a nice, quiet kid. But one of his friends always suspected there was something going on in his home life. So in 1985, Todd had an argument with his mom. He decides to go for a walk after this fight. He unplugs the natural gas line to the home and goes out on his walk. While he's gone, the house explodes and starts on fire. Thankfully, his family got out okay. And I don't know how in the hell that happened if it exploded, but that's a miracle.
Yeah.
So they get out, and I guess his stepdad was like outside screaming for Todd because he thought he was trapped in the house and he was like wanted to save him. Yeah. I was like, too bad you didn't know that this kid is the one that caused this.
And probably intentionally because he probably knew what was going on.
Yeah. Why would you just unplug that and then go on a walk?
Yeah.
So he ends up pleading guilty to arson. He said that he was just doing it to scare his mom. He didn't think anything would actually happen. I guess him and his mom just fought all the time and like not a good relationship. It's been an ongoing thing. So he gets charged and he only gets 30 months probation and 160 hours of community service. I mean, he was like
Wow.
17, but still. Yeah.
That is attempted
So that shows you
murder.
what kind of crazy guy this is we're talking about. So after this fire and all the things, he ends up, moving away. I don't know to where, but this was about 3 years later, he met his first wife, Teresa. So they were young, 20, 21. They also hit it off. Teresa said he was just like really kind and fun. And they actually got married in Jamaica because she knew that he had a bad family like situation and they weren't involved at all. So they just kind of eloped and did their thing. And then after that, because he didn't want anything to do with his family, he changed his last name to his biological father's last name, I believe.
Okay.
So, then he becomes a dad. They have 3 girls together. They say he's a really good dad. The early years of their marriage were really good. Teresa said that after several years of their marriage and his business and all the things, the financial burdens and stress took over because I'm sure this started at a very young age.
Oh, yeah. It didn't just start up with Katrina.
Oh, yeah. So, he was never really clear with her, like, what his job was. And she was just like, whatever, like, you're bringing money home. She said nothing was, like, consistent. Like, he would have money, but it was nothing they could count on like, a regular basis.
Yeah.
So at one point, they have nothing. They're forced to sell their house, and they move in with her parents because they have no money. Yeah. So then she's basically pushed to go get a job. So she works, which... I mean, that's fine. But like when you're taking care of 3 kids too, like that's hard. Right. But she worked a full-time and a part-time job and was the primary caretaker of the kids.
Oh my God.
She said it just was too much and she couldn't deal with it. So I was like, good for her because they separated.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm done with this.
Right. That she needed to work a full-time and a part-time and also take care of the kids. What the fuck are you doing, dude?
Like her. And when they talked to her, I'm like, you're a good person. How did you end up with this? I mean, that's how they all are though. They can just... schmooze, yeah. So they shared custody but had separated. So shortly after that, the date was October 6th of 2001. She was coming home from somewhere and she was by herself. So she parks the car. She gets out of her car. She's walking up to the house, which she still lived with her parents at this point. She said she was carrying her keys, her bag, and a Capri Sun, which is funny. She said, I will never forget that because I don't know why I'm a mom. I had a Capri Sun.
Right.
So she's walking up around the house, and as soon as she turns the corner, there's someone standing there, and they punch her in the face super hard where it knocks her over. She looks up to see who this person is, and they're wearing like a wolf mask, like a Halloween mask. Creepy.
Terrifying.
Yeah. And she said that this person continued to punch her and was just beating her. And so she was on the ground, and she somehow was able to turn and kind of get on her knees. And she said that he put his hand like on her chin and his other hand like around the back of her neck. And she said she thought he was going to snap her neck.
Yeah.
And she said in that moment, all she could think about was her mom coming outside in the morning and finding her body. And she said like the thought of that alone just gave her this adrenaline surge. And so she got up and just knocked him backwards and ran inside. So she reports this to the police. She immediately says like, this was Todd Smith, and they're like, well, how do you even know if he had on a mask? She's like, I was married to him. I know him. I know his body language, his mannerisms. I could see his eyes. I know it was him. So when they talk to him, he's denying it, of course. And he's like, no, it wasn't me. I was home. They even tested nails? Yeah, well, they even tested her fingernails under her nails because she had scratched them and stuff. But the test came back inconclusive. Yeah. And Todd refused to cooperate and give a DNA sample. And because they said they didn't have probable cause, other than her just saying that, they couldn't force him to do it. So the case was closed. And Teresa said she was actually happy because she's like, she just didn't want to go through all that trauma of reliving it again. But she also did not want her kids to have to hear about it either, because she said she would just take it to her grave. She was never going to tell anybody about it, and just to protect your kids.
I understand that to an extent, but then like you're going to trust this man to be around your children who clearly,
like, he's not going to do that to them.
Right, because it feels like this is a moment of, if I kill her, then I have custody of the kids and I don't have to pay child support. And then, I don't know. Like,
I know. I had mixed feelings on that too, because I was like, I understand like the trauma of like, some people don't want to talk about those things, but like at the same time, you want to protect your children. And knowing that, I mean, I don't know how old the kids were. It's different if they're like 5 or 15, like, but still, you could censor things a little bit with getting the point across. And what kind of like judge or attorney would, they would, if they had all this information, you would think they would be on her side. But at the same time, back then, I don't know. I can't remember what year you said it was. What, 2001?
2001?
Yeah, I think so.
What I mean, I guess, I don't know. Like, did we not look at his hands? Couldn't we have forced that? Like,
I don't know.
How is it not probable cause that you're the ex-husband?
Right. That's what I was like, what do you mean probable cause? Like, if she's pretty certain too, like, but once again, like, being a female, they probably were just like, whatever, Yeah. But there should have been physical evidence on her other than her nails. I mean, if he punched her that hard, like.
Well, and he should have, like, if he punched her that hard and stuff too, and he punched her that often, like, he would have had split knuckles or something too, or scratches on him.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, get, what do you call it? The paper that you get from a judge.
A restraining order, protection order.
No, the thing that
makes a warrant.
Thank you.
One of those things.
That one,
that's it.
Like, go to, like, hey, this is her ex-husband. She's fairly certain. Like,
I know. At least look into it and just get his DNA and like disprove it or not, especially because kids are involved,
Yeah.
So,
and if he's not willing to even like show you his knuckles or something like that,
right.
like feels a little like if he's being that uncooperative.
I agree. I think that's sus to begin with if you're going to act like that. And when she questioned him about it, he denied it too, obviously.
Well, of course, yeah.
And so like, I don't know the timeline of when they found this. The police, I mean, I know not everything is available right away when they're finding information and you have to get warrants and all the things. But like, the police investigating Katrina's death are obviously like, oh, this is intriguing. But so I don't know why it took that long for them to find that. But now they have this on him too. And so they also were looking at surveillance cameras around that area where her car was found, because there's a lot of houses not far from like the road. And so thankfully by then, like, Ring and whatever, Nest, all the cameras were already out. So they were able to pull some surveillance from one of the houses so one of them shows like a guy, like a small stature person. He's walking in like dark clothes. They can't see who it is, obviously. They could just see the body because it's not like it's great quality. But he was walking right in the area where like the car had been in the direction of where all the other stuff had been. He kind of like walks, they see on the camera, walks to this dead end area. And then when they lose track of him, they're like, well, if you were to walk from this point to his house, it's like a 10-minute walk. So like, could be, circumstantial.
Right.
So then they get a warrant to search his house, his laptop, and they do find on his computer, he had a tracking system on there. They couldn't pull details on it, but they're like, well, chances are he probably was, tracking her.
Mm-hmm.
And in the search, they also find this metal baseball bat in the corner of the garage. There were small spots that were confirmed to be Katrina's blood. And yeah, so that pans out with what was done.
Why would you keep that?
I don't know. What an idiot. Like, you're going to get rid of all this other shit, but not that?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand that. I don't know if he thinks, like, because her stuff was elsewhere, that they would just assume the weapon would be somewhere out there and not at the house because she wasn't killed there. I don't know. And why would you not clean it off better, too? Like, when they first showed it, I was like, what? How would you not notice that? But I think some of it was just stained, I mean, from, wear and tear, but like there was little spots of blood. So they take it. And then when Todd found out that they took that, he like just flipped shit and was so mad. And like, then he got real nervous. So when they bring him in and talk to him, because they brought him in several times at this point to talk to him, and any excuse really to just bring him in. They wanted to kind of just get a feel for him and stuff. So when they bring him in this time, they're like, making accusations that he was involved, and he denies it, and he just keeps denying it. And he's like, what are you getting at? And then at one point he just flips out. He stands up, he throws, like, the chair flies into the wall behind him, and he looks up at the camera in the interview room, and he just says, I want my fucking attorney, over and over and over. They said he kept just yelling it. So they're like, peace out. So he leaves, and that was the last
case, though, dude.
Right, yeah. And that was basically the last convo they had with him without an attorney present. So November 1st of 2012, this was 12 days after Katrina's body was found, they charge him with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of concealing a homicide. So I don't know why the 4 counts. That really confuses me. Do you know the reasoning? Because I don't understand. I don't know if there's different
I thought
things.
there was only, like, I thought it was per person. Like, you killed.
Yeah.
So, like,
I even looked it up, like, a couple times to make sure it wasn't, like, a typo, and it says that on multiple things. So I don't know on, like, a state level if there's different. Yeah, you look that up. Yeah. I actually was put in my notes to look that up, and I forgot to go back and do that because I had a lot of information in here.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But of course he pleads not guilty to all the things. So let me see here. I don't know. Like, and I don't know. I don't know. I guess because if they have the concealment as a separate charge. So like what else are you, how can you say that there's more than one charge?
Yeah, I don't get it. But I guess.
I don't either. I was hoping you would know. I think
it's something to do. Also, like Reddit.
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking at, and they're talking about Illinois. I think it's going to be something with Illinois because this case is talking about the murder of Sonia Macy by an Illinois police officer, and he was charged with 3 counts.
Huh. Maybe it depends on like the level of severity or something.
Maybe.
I have no idea. But
I don't know if anyone knows a legit reason.
I was
each
like, I don't know.
Each charge is going to have different. Okay, so I guess it's like each jar. Okay, so this says each charge is going to have different elements. Don't think of it as 3 counts of murder. It's likely 1 count of murder, 1 count of X, and 1 count of Y. Whether they're each essentially the same, it allows the state to argue different motives and stuff.
Okay.
So.
Okay, that makes sense. But
when it came time to sentencing, they would all merge to the most serious one that the jury finds the defendant guilty of.
Okay, that makes sense when I have the final like results here. But yeah, I thought that was weird going into it. I'm like, what? But okay, so they're like giving options like
yes.
Yeah. Okay, it's basically
one I guess is like intentional, reckless, things like that. I guess so varying degrees of first degree murder maybe.
Okay. That makes sense. All right. So, he pleads not guilty. Shocking. So they have a ton of evidence, but like nothing really directly that connects him to the murder. So the bat had no traces of his DNA, which was kind of odd, but he must have cleaned it really well or something, which is stupid because like if it's their bat, naturally there should be probably DNA on it anyway. So the fact that there's not, like, was she an avid baseball player? Like maybe his daughters? I don't know, but it was odd. So it's not like a slam dunk case, which kind of sucks because they don't really have like a, the smoking gun. Everything was based off circumstantial evidence, which makes sense. When you look at everything, it's like, how could you not find him guilty? But then at the same time, you have to have those pieces of evidence that literally, like, without a reasonable doubt type thing. So then his attorney tries to argue that the evidence of the GPS tracker on his computer should be thrown out because there was no actual proof that he was stalking or tracking Katrina specifically. So when this comes up, this actually kind of benefits them because investigators were like, hell no, like we need this. So they end up using a new, different software. They have their guys go back in, look through the computer, and they're able to find like logs that had been deleted, and they're able to recover these. And interestingly enough, when the tracker was removed from the vehicle, that being Katrina's vehicle, he thought he had turned it off. No, it was on the whole time that he took it off her car. So as he walked from her car, it follows the track of where evidence was left all the way to the front door of his house. And it's a perfect timeline. Talk about a smoking gun. I thought, I bet the defense wishes they hadn't done that. So they're able to say, like, and they're like, this isn't shit that can, like, be messed with. Like, this is in the moment, live, like, computer shit. So the whole time, this idiot, like, thinks it's off. So basically, like, jealousy is ultimately what got him because the tracking thing is what really sealed the deal there.
Yeah.
So they don't go to trial until January of 2016. So 4 years after. Yeah. And by then everybody is following this case there. And everyone's like feels super betrayed by him because of like, that would suck. Like everyone comforting him and stuff. Like I think about that and how pissed off I would be. Like, you piece of shit, you fooled us all. But the prosecutor of the case, Marilyn Height Ross, was such a badass. She reminds me totally of Annalise Keating. Is it Keating? Keaton? On How to Get Away with Murder. Like, just like her, everything about the way she like presented herself and stuff, like just a badass. Like she gave no Fs. She, they said that the motive was that she was moving on with her life and she didn't want to reconcile, and Todd couldn't deal with that. Plus, he probably needed her money.
Yeah.
So the defense side of things, they come in and they say that the police arrested the wrong man. And in a desperate attempt, they try to point the finger at Guy Gabriel. And they're like, this is interesting, though, because a month before this went to trial, Guy was actually charged with domestic assault. This is where I found out he had a wife, because it said that him and his wife had gotten in a big argument. And apparently, I don't know all the details, but he had slammed her head on the floor or something. Yeah. So I was like, well,
Jesus.
that's shitty. So then kind of makes you question, but they look and they're like, he literally has an airtight alibi. It's just coincidental.
Also,
yeah.
Also, Todd fucking tracked himself for dropping the evidence scene to his house. Why would Guy have gone up to his door with a tracker that was Todd's?
Right. Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. So, nice try. Clearly, they're grasping at straws.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they're like, nope, actually, that's not how that went. So, the closing arguments were, really emotional. They said it was more so than a lot of trials because Marilyn, the prosecutor, she took that bat, and when she was talking to the jury, she swung that bat over and over and said, this is what happened. He hit her, and then he said this, and then he hit her again, and he hit her again, and everyone was blown away with it. And she's like, I felt like I had to do it to show the emotion and to show what she had gone through. And they said it was super powerful. So the jury listened to 2 weeks of testimony. They had over 40 different witnesses.
Wow.
So I don't know how long they deliberated, but they come back and find him guilty, which good. He was sentenced to 55 years in prison, which was, I'm like, that's it. But at the same time, he's old, but still, it's basically a life sentence. So then he was charged with an additional 4 years for concealment of a body. So he continues to deny his involvement. And even when he had a chance to speak, he was told the family, I loved her. I would never have done any of this. And I'm not mad at you or at the state I understand why you're doing this, but it wasn't me. And I was like, that's so gross. Don't make it about you.
Also, you were fucking caught literally red-handed with that tracker.
Right. How else can you explain that?
Up to it now, dude. Just fucking ridiculous.
I agree. So stupid. Technically, he won't be eligible for parole until 2069. And at that time, he would be 102 years old.
Okay, fine. Okay.
I know. Fine. That's the only... At first, I was like, that's it? 55, which is still shitty.
Still
I wish
shitty.
They would just to say a life sentence sounds a lot more harsh than 55 years. This was pretty, just gruesome, too, and, horrific. And, no. And she, no. And, when you see pictures of her and stuff, she just looks really sweet. They don't talk about her a ton other than, they say, she was really quiet. She was very kind, really smart. One of her teachers in high school said that she was, very mature for her age. So she just had a lot going for her. It sucks that she met this douchebag. So once he was in prison, too, his daughter said that she called him and asked him to tell her the truth. She said, I can't do this anymore. Either you tell me the truth or I'm never talking to you again. And he straight up told her he couldn't. And she said she has not talked to him since. And I was like, that is really sad. So I don't know if he has a relationship with his other daughters or not. But I was glad that they at least weren't oh, he's innocent, and they could see it for what it was, because I think they really did love her. He's still in the process of going through appeals that continue to be denied. And when they kind of just talked to Katrina's family, at the end of this case getting wrapped up and everything, they said that they just wanted people to remember her for who she was and for how she died. And that she was kind, smart, and warm, and that people should strive to live like that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of details on her other than that. And it sounds like she just got really mixed up with the wrong guy.
The wrong guy.
Fooled a lot of people. So
I am curious, though, about Guy, the affair partner, if he actually was married at the time, because it's been long enough that he could have gotten married to someone else.
That's
fair.
It's
still not okay what he did.
Right. Yeah, in that time, because I guess it was a 4-year time difference. So you're right. I don't know. It could have gone either way, but
it's hard to say. But
I just was like, that's so sad.
Yeah.
That episode, the 2020, I mean, we'll put that in the notes, but it's called Death Vow. And I was like, I don't want to obviously say that in the title because sometimes that gives stuff away. But it was actually it was a good one. And they talked to a lot of the people involved in this case. And I was like, I got a lot of good information from it. So I recommend that one for anyone that's a 2020 fan. But yeah, that is the case of Katrina Smith in Manchesney Park, Illinois.
Wow, that's sad. It's also sad to think that if the police would have pushed for a warrant to test him after his ex was attacked, Katrina would still be alive.
That's the other thing I was going to say. I was thinking about that earlier. Thank you for bringing that up, because Teresa said that, his ex-wife, she was like, she might be alive if something had come from that, and like, even though they don't know that it's him, she's like, I know for a fact that was him. And when you know someone and like it perfectly timed out from when they split and all that. Yeah. And so, and she's remarried now, and her husband is a wonderful guy. He was supporting her during this documentary and saying that when she hurts, he hurts, and like just a nice guy. So I was like, good. I'm glad that she found someone that treated her nice. So that is that case, and I never had heard of it actually. No, before. I haven't but either. It seems kind of like the time that I would have, we would have had smartphones and stuff kind of. To hear about the happenings in the world. So I don't know how I missed that one, but
I don't know. I was getting married in 2012, at the end of 2012, so I was wedding planning that year. And
that's funny. 2012. I had like a newborn, I guess, but I was probably just, like pulling my hair out. So I don't know. Right. But also in the show notes too, I have links to give you for the domestic violence hotline and all the things, just because it's relevant on the topic. So
well, thank you for sharing that. That is heartbreaking and sad. And I hope the girls, the daughters, kind of had support and all that. I mean, it sounds like they have a good mom still and stuff too. But Jesus,
I know, traumatizing in so many ways, like losing your stepmom who was very involved, and then you lost your dad too, and then hearing the shit that he did to your mom, like and like you want to believe your parent, and you don't want to think that there's someone that could do something that awful, but unfortunately that has been proven time and time again that that's not always the case.
But like the other thing with the cops not looking into Teresa's attack is like, this clearly wasn't like a robbery or something. This was a personal attack.
They were waiting for her, and they knew her schedule. Exactly. So that part bothered me. Like when I was giving props to the police in the beginning, I liked them, but not these ones.
No. So well, thank you for sharing that. That was, we'll
that's it.
Still keep up. The plan is to still have an episode. Keep going.
We're taking it week by week at this point.
Yeah, at this point, you guys, it's we're at that time of year where really after Halloween, like once November hits, it's so crazy busy for me, and it's just like taking it week by week and where we're at. So
it's tough. I wasn't sure what's going to happen this time because I was like overwhelmed with things, and then and originally we had planned on taking a break around this time, but because we had taken other breaks, we're like, well, let's push through. So no guarantees when
the impromptu break at the end, beginning of the month and stuff. So we're going to do our best to at least get a few more out. Like, I don't know, we had talked about having like when school's out, the last week, like Christmas week and that first week in January off. We'll kind of see. We'll play that by ear, I guess, as things go about and what we can do. But we'll try to keep you all posted with that as well. And you guys know the drill. Follow us, like, rate, review, share. We have the YouTube now. Listen, it's nothing fancy because I don't know how to edit videos, so it's just us talking. Like, we don't have the images up there. One of these days, I might try to, 2025. Maybe that's the goal, is to try to figure out how to, like, we can put up images. I know there's a way to do it when I edit from our place, but like then that requires more work on my part too. Right.
And right now, no one has the time for that, so it's fine. That'll be on our planning session for 2025.
Yes, but now TikTok you can put on, you can have up to 60 minutes. So if this one is over that, I split it in half.
Oh, yeah.
I do parts 1 and 2. So you can watch it on YouTube or you can watch the full things on our TikToks. Facebook.
Yeah.
Instagram.
Give us some stories that you guys like, that you hometown stuff or someone that experienced something like that. And also, rate and review, because that pushes us up and that helps people
that helps a
see our
ton.
podcast.
Yes. And like now with Spotify, because that's where we're hosting from, obviously you can listen anywhere, but like you can comment on things on podcast episodes on Spotify. So, we get there, we try to look at that, and we can actually respond now. Before you could only like publish comments, but you couldn't respond, which didn't make sense, but now you can actually respond to comments. So all the places, we're on all the things. Feel free to email us or message us on any of our socials. If you're going to be nice, don't be rude.
Only if you're nice.
Constructive criticism is fine. If you're like, hey y'all, this was just one little thing you got wrong or something, or like actually it was this, like cool, that's fine, but be nice about it, don't be dicks.
There's a way to go about it. Thank you.
Yes.
Hashtag be kind.
That's where we're at. So you guys, good luck with the holidays coming up. I think, mental health, take care of yourself, y'all. We're still talking about that, but I know this time of year with it getting dark earlier and stuff, that's already a tough time. And then holidays. Sure. So do what you need to take care of yourselves. And just, until next time, stay Heartland kind.
Darkland wary.